Hey everybody, back again for part 2 of the He-Man card. Going to be sharing this with the website real quick, or the actually the Facebook page, so everybody can see, and setting it up for the channel. So bear with me just a second, and there we go. Cool deal. So as we know, this one. Hey Gilbert, glad you made it, man. This one ran over a little bit, and I'm going to try and finish this out today. So, crunching on my throat drop here. So, if you hear the popping, that's what that is. Just going to try and detail this out and get it going in for finishing it up. This guy is so small. I just want to get it detailed in there without working it too much. And I'm going to try to keep this one quick. I don't want to run another hour today for this one. Hopefully, I'll be able to get him sketched in and knock it out. And with this looking up, this upshot here, where he's looking up in the air at the sword, I kind of cut it a little broad because I wanted him to have a little more masculine chin than just, you know, like they used to do in the series. They would cut it up to where he would look up just a little bit, but it was with his eyes, not his nose and his mouth, and, you know, not his entire face. It was more of his eyes, so they could keep the animated look and not risk getting boxed out. Got kind of a John Romita Jr. thing going on here with the blocky jaw there, but it works. I mean, it handles well for what it is. I'm all right with that. And this card is so daggum tiny, and yes, daggum is the technical term. I think I've got it made to where I'll be able to flesh this out pretty good. So I'm going to give him the big, instead of giving him the, you know, the Super Bowl or He-Man Bob as it's become known, I'm going to give him an 80s style hairband type of haircut, because I didn't want to mess with all that that funky, you know, mushroom cut thing that they had on the original. And I know that's a modification, and I know you guys, some of you guys are going to be like, that's not true to form. But the thing of it is, though, it's going to work just fine. And I guarantee you the modern one's not going to have that either. He's not going to have that. You know, when they redid He-Man for the Cartoon Network, they redid it to where he had kind of a modern haircut rather than that old helmet hair thing going on, which I'm cool with that. That was a great rendition as well. But we could end up getting, you know, we could get the Dolph Lundgren mullet back. That was a fancy piece, wasn't it? So, I'm going to go back in here, and I know I blocked these out as separate turrets and whatnot, but I decided to go more traditional with it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab this and cut this out. I'm going to cut these columns out, and I'm going to go with the different colored stones like they were supposed, and different size stones like they were supposed to be, because I didn't like the way that ended up. But so we're going to go that route. Live drawing. I'm changing it on the spot, on the fly, so we can get that going. Now what I am going to do is I'm going to modify it just a little bit to where we can get all of this going on with these cobblestones being in here and then still having it look like it's supposed to. Because they're not going to be exact, and they're not supposed to. Okay, so I'm going to go in and to modify that, I'm going to change up the shape just a little bit, where some of them are going to be smaller, some of them are going to be bigger, and I'm not going to cut every one like this. I'm just going to cut every couple so that we get that offset look. But I noticed in my reference I wanted it to look more like this, and, you know, more like a rendition of it rather than an exact duplicate anyway. But still, I wanted you guys to be happy with it, because I put these extra layers on the turret anyway, where it's all going to be layered up and slanted anyhow. And I know a lot of people had a problem with that. And it was addressed yesterday. That was funny. It's like, your turrets don't match, right? Yes, I know the turrets don't match. I found that funny. Because people were all upset about it. It's like, the turrets don't match. I know. Hush. I know. It's okay. But it's not real GraySkull. You didn't match it. Some people take this very seriously and got bent at me about it. But I just wanted to try something different. I just wanted to mess around with it a little bit and see what I could do with it. And if you guys don't like that, sorry. Sorry to disappoint, but it was an experiment. Fans don't like it. I apologize. I own it. But in all seriousness, though, yeah, I just wanted to mess around with it a little bit and see if I could get something cool out of it and maybe modify it a little bit. Nobody's complained too bad. There were just a couple of people that pointed it out to me that it was messed up because they're purists and they were just like, we want to make sure it's straight and blah, 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 and this, that, and the other. And I get where you're coming from. It's cool. Thank you for pointing it out. But it's not necessary to go all off on it. Now we're going to get into the cool stuff because then I'm going to cut in these weird rocks and whatnot, the big stones and everything. Because if I remember right, there is a funky shaped window right about here. And I'm not sure if that's where, if it was in this one or the other one, but I'm going to put it right here anyway. So that's where we're going, folks. And I know all my tattoo friends are going, dude, you didn't use a reference. Yeah, I don't have to. I'm sketching. I don't have to. So I can get away with that where you guys can't. So I'm going to kind of draw this in now. And then we will get into some of the detailing and all of that. What did I do with my blotter here? Because I don't want to monkey with this too much. And then these big cobblestones, like I said, these big cobblestones cut in funky ways like this. And they have gaps and spaces and whatnot. And I really had fun with those. In my design, but I didn't map this in because, like I said, I wanted to freehand it a little more so you guys would get to see some more detailing and whatnot, and I could experiment with that as we went along. But right about here, right about the middle of these teeth here, especially these big fangs, is where it starts to go funky and become raw stone, and that's when you get these like squiggles down here where it's been chipped away, and whatever here. I'm going to put that like that. So it layers down here, and then this is all carved flat where the jaw hits and the ramp comes down the drawbridge. I have to be careful though, because the way these rock formations work, if you do them too close together, they'll run and they'll look veined and they'll look like instead of looking like cut stone, they'll end up looking something like camouflage, and you don't want to do that. You just want to keep it like angular for the open rocks where it's been chipped away at layers and bits and pieces like this. I'm going to move over here, checking my camera tab. Making sure you guys can see this. But yeah, you got to make sure it just runs kind of downward in veins like it's supposed to. And then you chip away at it and put in like breaks where it angles and shadows and such. You have to be careful with the negative space here too, which if you don't know what the negative space is, that's the white space. You know, a lot of people go, well, everything's got to be used up. Everything's got to be used up. And the thing is, with natural organic surfaces like rock and stone and things like that, you don't want to use up every surface, because then it doesn't give the dynamic whenever it pops off from the edge of it. See, like this one here, I'll shade this in like this is an undercut or a break underneath this rock, and then what I'll do is I'll cut that out like that and give it an angle. So now it looks like it's sticking out over this crack right here and then over that hole there, so you have that going on. Like down here, I'll add another one so it looks like it's cracked in the fine line where they cleaned it all out. And I'll leave these broad spaces like this one, this one, this one, and this one here for like smooth, where they cut down in, and then these pieces were chipped out as leftover kind of things. So it looks like it was a smooth surface, and then it cracked back as they carved into the rest of the turret. So I'm going to do this side and start making this look all stone worked. Then you got to decide on this, on these rocks like this, on these stones with the double edge, so they don't look like they're going to run together and they look like they're going to connect. You have to go dark on one side. And the reason you do that is because if you go open on one and then you go dark on another, it gives it that edge to where there's a highlight hitting it. So I'll darken out where the light's going to be hitting down this direction, so it'll be hitting down here. So it'll block out part of this side right there. And now when you go in with your other stones, because everything was cut to fit, each individual stone looks like it was cut and restacked. And not carved into the actual rock. Because if it's carved into the rock, you could, if it was one piece of rock and it was just carved, you could blow that up. But the reason castles work is because of the fact that the structural stacking of the materials of the building hold it together. So whenever you hit an impact, only a section of it disperses, and the rest of it absorbs it as individual stones. That's the reason a solid castle would fall apart if you hit it with a catapult of, you know, say boulders or whatever. It would break down, and that's the reason like a concrete slab would bust it versus a stone wall would last it longer, because of the fact it could absorb all the impact. That's the reason that the architecture worked for so many centuries. And that's the reason the Great Wall of China was built in stone sections rather than big sections, because the Chinese had concrete. I did not know this. It was an ancient form of it, but I didn't know that. But when the Great Wall was built, they could have built it in segments of concrete. And they had access to all the stone, obviously. I mean, they built the Great Wall, so if they had that kind of level of stone, they could have made pulp from it and made their own concrete. So you got to think about what they would do there. I mean, it's not like modern concrete where it would stand up to, you know, way tougher stuff, but they had a primitive formula. But they're the same ones that brought us, you know, things like gunpowder and things like that blow that stuff up now. So well, what do I know? I'm not a historian. I'm just an artist. My name is Simon, and I like to draw pictures. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it. Okay, I'm gonna pop one right there. Yeah, that held up way better than I thought it would. Now, once I get a few more of these shadows in, I'll go in and detail this stuff up. It's not near done yet, but I had no idea that I was going to put this much detail into this thing when I actually started to do it. And it's just, I blame you guys. You egged me on. Yeah, I'll blame you. So, it's like, put more detail in your work. 3 days later, we're still working on the same card. It's okay if you put in a little less. It really is. Oh, man. All right, I'm going to black out this window. Grab the trusty old 9 over here. And now that I see those turrets like that, I actually like them better. I mean, granted, they aren't the original, and I understand that, but it still would have worked. Oh, no, he's going the wrong direction. Did anybody ever tell you that rule when you were a kid? To color from the same direction? I just went like 2 or 3 different waves there. Let's see. I like that pretty good. I'm going to finish up this turret, and then I'm going to go back up here to the other side. Well, I may do some more on He-Man first. I don't know. Well, I'm going to wait before I say that because I don't want to bounce around too much. I don't want to say something and then not do it. It'd just be like, that's not what you said. And I just noticed I have to get rid of this too. I'm going to clean this up anyway when I ink it, but still, that's going to irk me because big old fingerprint right there. That was from the back of my hand yesterday where I put too much pressure on it. Yeah, I like that one sticking out just a little bit. Okay, cool. I think that actually works. I'm going to put in a couple of shadows down here, and then I'm going to get back up on top and finish those stones up. Just want to kind of bring this up a little bit. I should be using a finer pencil for this, but I'm not. So bear with me. Just going in on certain places and giving it a little angle to it, like it cuts down and under kind of thing. And like I said, I'm going to leave these big pieces open where the path was cut out kind of deal. And now I'll go back to my finer line here and start seeing if I can grade some of this in. Without it all going the same direction, hopefully. Yeah, that looks all right. Cool. Okay, now I'm going to go back up top here. And start shaping out these stones. And I haven't detailed this one out yet like I did the face, where I'm going to keep it a little bit less defined, because I want these stones to be like barren in comparison to the detail of this until I get the turret ready, because that's why I'm not going on each individual stone and mapping it all out, because I don't want it to look overworked by picking one stone and overdoing it. I want it to have a balance to it so that not everything is uniformed. But I also don't want it to have so much detail that it drowns it out either. That's a big, like I talked about yesterday, that was a big thing with me, and it still is, that I don't want to overwork it to the point to where you can't recognize what it is. And a lot of people tend to do that, and they'll just go in, and squiggle all the way through it, and you can't tell what's going on. And yeah, that's a technical term, by the way. That's a technical term. So, and see, every one of these will have a little bit different mark on it. And try not to get too uniform, but even more so, try not to get too sequential to where you go, you don't want to go left, right, down, left, right, down, left, right, down all the way across, because then it'll look funky, because it'll have a pattern to it, and it won't look like natural stone. It'll look like uniform cuts, and you don't want to do that. Each stone won't have characteristics that way if you follow that kind of approach. So don't necessarily do that. I like to mix it up with a little bit on every side so that everything has it. That's starting to come off all right. Let's turn it back around so we can see. Yeah, that's not too heavy. I can live with that. I can live with that. All right. So I'm going to go down here and try to, like I said, liven some of these stones up. Little squiggles and weathered pot marks and, little holes and things like that. Make a little smudge on that stone, like somebody tried to climb out the window, or maybe a bird ran into it. If they have birds on Eternia, you never see birds on Eternia except for giant birds that Beastman rides. They look like griffins or something funky like that. Be aware of your environment on these things when you're drawing stuff, so that you don't get too far into it. Now, with this slope at the bottom, I'm not going to put anything there. As far as the stone goes here, I'm not going to detail this out like that, because I don't want it to look polished or cut on like these stones do. So I'm going to leave that raw. And in every incarnation of this, every incarnation, when you get to the bottom of the castle where the raw rock is, it always looks open and undetailed anyway. They always leave it very open and abstract. So to get that much detail into it, we've really done a good job, so I'm going to leave that alone. And switching back over here just a little. I'm kind of cutting in some of these odd shapes because, like I said, these turrets were built on the fly, and they don't have the same exact pattern all the way down. And we have kind of this ridge thing coming up here for that side of the castle. So that's where we're going to get that. Now, I'll go in and cut in these stones. So we're going to get one right there. They're all different shapes and sizes on this side because it was like a secondary. These were a secondary thought to the castle. They, every castle has turrets, and it's like, oh well, we'll use the stones that we carved out of this thing. When we carved out the face, we'll put these on the mount behind it. That's pretty much what they did. I love the design of this thing. They have these great big cobblestones, and then sometimes they have these smaller ones that just cut into it and stack. And it's like, well, we got a hole here, so let's stick a stone in there. So, but the funny thing is about it in ancient architecture, they used to cut in stones to build around natural cuts of other stones. So go figure that. It also depends on where it was built and how it was built, and if it was destroyed and rebuilt or what. But they were never exact. They always stocked up on the stones that they had around and the raw materials, and then they would build around whatever big materials they had. They would fill them in with other stones. That's why ancient stonemasons would cut smaller stones and wear them down to fill in holes between two bigger stones. And that's why you see some ancient buildings, that have these great patterns in them, because of the fact that there's no real pattern to them in the first place. I always just thought that was really cool. But I'm a history buff as well as a horror buff, so that's one of those things. I just really, really dig that stuff. I get asked all the time if I believe in the ancient alien theory of them coming down and laser cutting rocks and then disappearing and whatnot. And I'm not saying that there's not anything out there, because there's too many options of planets that are Earth-like or that support life with different chemical combinations not to. But I'm not going to go into a big debate about it. If they're out there, they're out there. If they're not, they're not. And it's always a cool conversation piece sometimes. I've never found it to be disappointing, for sure. But I'm not going to go order foil hats or anything like that either. And I'm not saying anything against prepping or anything like that, especially living in Oklahoma where storms happen on a whim. You should always be prepared at some level. As far as you can practically prepare, you should be prepared. But to each their own as far as that goes. But as far as the aliens thing goes, I don't know, man. I think we're at a point in our species, if they come, they're going to be way more advanced than we are anyway. So, I say hats off and say hi and offer them a hot dog. But you gotta take it with a grain of salt and see how well the pot's seasoned at the time. I'm cutting in some more of these. Like down here, I'm doing more of these rock build outs. It's kind of these rock sculptures here, as it were, because that's exactly what it was. It was sculpted into the rock. That's the reason I'm leaving those sides smooth. They kind of wore back at that point to clear it. Same thing they did at mushroom. In the mushroom blowouts for Mount Rushmore and all that. They did these small flume bursts of blowing out the rock, and it left these kind of funky faces and exposures. You know, they would have done the same thing in the actual architecture there if this were a reality. So I like to think about it in real terms of what, you know, real architects and real technicians and real, you know, construction crews would have done to get that rock face open. And like I said, we have to be careful here to make sure that everything really looks like a rock, or otherwise we're going to get some weird stuff and get into something looking like a a camouflage pattern, and we don't want that. Like, I'm going to take this big chunk right here and turn that downward. And now we've got the light surface coming across this way in the picture, so it comes down this way, and it wouldn't hit on that side, which is facing us. But this way it looks like it's downward rather than more up, and then we can black this out. That way it looks like the light's hitting that direction, and this is facing us in the dark. So same thing there, but I'm going to put that on a little bit of a slope so we would be able to see part of that as well. And then this one right back here would be the back side of that rock, so we wouldn't see that curve. There we go. Okay. Got a lot going on in this thing. Lot. All right. Now, because this is going to be the side of the castle, this is all going to be less colored, so it's going to be dimmer. And we'll put one right there. Because the light source is coming down from this angle, so that's going to be dimmed out. Of course, when all the power surge and all that comes in, it would light it up, but still. And like we did over there, we're going to have smooth patches like this right here and like this right here. And then I'm going to sink this one in right about there. So that looks like the edge of that rock. And then, so this looks smooth and this looks like a turned in fracture. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put a little black right there on the edge. And then I'll turn it this way. And that makes it look like it divots in there. Okay. Need to leave this a little more abstract to balance out. So what I'm going to do is draw a couple more lines in here. And then we're going to leave it alone. I don't want to overwork it. Okay, I think that looks good for that. So, oh, I do want to do one more thing right over here. I wanted to add that in to kind of jolt that out. And we'll run it right off the edge there. And we're going to call it a day on that one. Now, I'm going to go in here and cut in the cross for He-Man's chest. See if I can get that to look semi-accurate. doesn't look so bad. Okay, cool. Like I said, I'm not going to over detail him because I don't want him to look funky, and I don't want to overwork him because he's so tiny. I am going to liven that up a little bit though. Alfred and Johnny, you both made it, man. Thanks for stopping by. I appreciate it. I appreciate it. Giving some Jack Kirby knees. Make sure I didn't run out of lead here. There we go. Yay, we got lead. Oops. But I was prepared. I was prepared. My 5 ran out, so I'm using my 7 now, which is fine because I'm shading anyway. Just thickening this line up to make things have a little more of a pop to them. And snapping the lid like crazy today. Jeez. Been doing that a lot. Been doing that a lot. Awesome. I would look it on your wall, huh? Hey, Chris. Glad you made it, man. Hey, thanks, Alfred. I appreciate it. I know where I'm going. I know where I'm going for dinner. I'm going to go to Alfred's house. He's having lasagna with the kids tonight. So, yeah. Awesome. All right, now that I got that edged into where He-Man's in place, I do want to darken up the edge of that fist real quick. There we go. Yay, He-Man. He's actually got fingers. He's got fingers. Put in those big wristbands that he has. There we go. Okay. Now he's got all that in. I'm going to go and detail this, these turrets out, and then I'm going to go flesh out the bottom of that drawbridge a little bit, and then we're going to call it a day. We're about 39 minutes in. We may hit an hour mark. I'm trying not to. I'll speed along here, but I don't want to rush it to the point to where it ruins it. But I will, for sake of expediency, I will try to knock it out. Get everything kind of knocked in here a little bit. There we go. Because these are polished stones, so they need to be ridged out. We haven't quite gotten down to the turret yet to where We're still up in the crown of it right now, so we don't have to worry about that as much. Those lower stones, those bigger ones, I will have to map out because they have edges. Where they've been groomed down to fit into the castle construct, like that. I love seeing in these old buildings, I know this one doesn't exist, but in architectural structures in general, I love to see where these stones are like this, where they cut like little L brackets or little sleeves out of them to make them fit other stones. That's just something I've always just really enjoyed, and that's part of why I studied architecture for a while, because of the fact that I loved the way that materials would fit together to form a new and interesting outcome. Okay, I'll turn this where you guys can see more of it. And then I'm going to go in and detail some of these shadings, some of these shade spots and things like that. And we'll kick out that drawbridge and then we'll be done. And then I'll go off and eat this bad boy and cry, because I know I'm going to have to say goodbye to it and give it away. And one of you guys are going to get it for my Kickstarter. And I know someone's going to love having it. Oh, I almost snagged that card right there. There we go. Oh, that would have been awful. I can feel it. It's flat. Whew. I was like right at the finish line too. Boy, that would have been horrible. I caught that lip and I folded it up and I was just like, oh, please tell me that didn't tear. Okay. Almost got it. Almost. There's like 4 more stones right here. 1, 2, 3. Oh, there's 5. Okay, cool. Yeah. And this turret had a lot more smaller stones than that one because it sits further back, and it's off kilter. If you ever had the toy set, this one's set in the back, this one's set in the front. So it is what it is. We've got that going on. Let's do this drawbridge real quick, and then we'll call it a day. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come right down here. I'm going to make this secondary raised lip on it. I think I'll pull that down front here too. Bear with me just a second. I'll get it back up on camera where you guys can see it. You go right down behind that tooth. Come right up there off the edge. All right. Okay, let me come back out this way. Like that. Hey, look, from the lighting, it looks like it's He-Man Superstar. Have you ever seen Jesus Christ Superstar? They lit up behind him right there at the end. If you've never seen that, you should. You really should. They sing that in what was it? Multiple plays, but I think it's the Magic Code. I think it is. 1, 2, 3, 4. I got all 4 sections. Cool deal. I'm gonna go in right here. Try to remember where I wanted to map everything out without overworking it to where He-Man looks flat. I'm going to cut in this ridge right here. Now, I'm not going to detail this one too much because I don't want to overwork it, like I said, but I'm just going to put in these ridges right here. Just kind of put in a couple of swishes here and there. And then we're going to go with this really polished face right here, which is going to be weird because it's almost going to look like water because it's almost a marble kind of thing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of make these swish marks like this and give it this rippled effect. And now I'm going to leave this open because it's going to be colored for the clouds and for the energy. And that'll come in with the color. So I'm going to leave that alone and call it a day. You know, it depends, Chris. I think on this one, because these are 3x5 cards, so we're looking at a 6x10 here. If this was to be 11x17, the color and detail would definitely change. He would look a lot better. He would look a lot more dynamic, and he would look a lot cleaner and a lot more detailed because of the fact that he would be closer in perspective. But the detail level, I don't know if the detail level would be that much different as in the finer details, because the rocks would still have to be detailed out, but they would be much larger. You know, they would be a much larger scale. So Castle GraySkull within itself, if it was an 11x17 page, which is what I've got right here as my backer, this would be about this size. The Castle GraySkull itself would be about this size in scale. So it'd be about twice the size it is now. And He-Man would take up the other 3/4 of a page. So, yeah. I hope that answers that question. But Chris had asked if the detail would change if I did it on a larger scale. It depends. The refinement, as in the detail put into it right now, wouldn't. But the visibility of the detail would be. So, and one thing I wanted to do real quick is go balance this out and put in these shadows where I need to for these stones, so they come up like they're supposed to. And you don't want to shadow every stone because it'll make it look weird and it'll make it look like there's no texture to it. You know, because some of these stones are bigger and they stick out further. So it's just the ones that are a little more recessed. because the wall's not exactly balanced, that would be the one you'd want to show off more. So I think we've about got it. I'm going to do a couple more here, and then I'm going to do a few of these side shadows to give it relevance in the perspective of the way this is, because no light's coming down this way, so the light would be on this side of the shadow. So where we're going to see it now is we're going to see it on the other side, like that. Boom, done. And these would pretty much be all in darkness because they're underneath. But color would translate that, not necessarily the shading, by the edge of the stone. Right down in there. That would be good because that would be on that side. So we'd want it right here. And that's down underneath that big one, so we'd have that. Just little things about where the light hits each individual stone is what you want to pay attention to. But like I said, you don't want to go round them all out to where heavy shadows on all of them, because then they would be monotoned, and that wouldn't help. They would be monotoned, and that wouldn't help at all. Okay. There we go. Cool. I think that's it. I'm going to call that a day because I don't want to, like I said, I don't want to burn that up. And what we're going to do is I'm going to ink this one, color it for you guys, and I'll use the old classic blues, pinks, purples, things like that from the He-Man days of the actual cartoon, so we'll be able to see all of that. And then, like I said, I'm going to take my trusty eraser, and I'm going to cut in some lines for the power lines so that we can get in the cool power effect of when he says the magic phrase, and we highlight the sword from there. So yes, I'm going to go in and do some massive erosion and eruption to some of this beautiful detailed work, if I do say so myself. But it's par for course, folks. It's what it is. Thank you for hanging out with me. Thanks for sticking in with this one, because I know these 2 days have been a little weird with this one taking so long, because everybody's been asking me, how big is that freaking card that you have to do 2 days? But it is what it is. So we're going to go from there. Thanks for stopping by, everybody. I appreciate it. Chris, Alfred, you guys, thanks for the comments, man. I appreciate that as always. See you tomorrow, where we start the Skeletor piece. Another big, massive piece is coming in. So we're going to have to go from there to finish out this He-Man set. And then I'm going to get back to some comic stuff. And hopefully later this week, I've got that King Kong versus Godzilla piece coming up, which is an 11x17 that will also be available during the Kickstarter. So got to finish up the sketchbook this weekend, this coming weekend, and post it. So we got all that going on. I got the cards ready to go, and we're going to go from there. I will talk to you guys tomorrow. Take care. Be kind. Say hi to somebody. Smile. Be nice. Talk to you later.